Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Anabrese here, Spiritual Mentor. And today I want to do a video entitled How to Stay Grounded and Sane During a Spiritual Awakening. So I know that during this time, this is being recorded in May 2020, and most of us are around the world are in self-isolation at the moment or quarantine. And this is having quite an impact, on many people. And there is, well, it's been said that this is actually assisting a great spiritual awakening on the planet. It's a catalyst for change, for great change, inner change, and for humanity to really look at what we've been doing with our choices and our behavior on this planet, and becoming more aware of the impact that has. So that's just a kind of aside, but many of us, or maybe you watching this video just now, have been going through a kind of spiritual crises or awakening process that could have started well before the coronavirus came in. So wherever you are on that journey, I just want to say welcome, and you're not alone, and that many people are going through that and have gone through it, and myself included. And this video is just to give you some assistance and reassurance basically on many of the challenges that you might find when you're going through this kind of awakening journey. So this video is about, I'm going to talk about some practical things that you can do later on in the video to help you stay grounded during this kind of spiritual shift or awakening that you might be going through. But first of all, I kind of just want to talk briefly about the kind of different types of awakening that people might experience. So first of all, there's like a Kundalini Awakening, which I haven't really delved into too much about, but I understand now that that was probably what happened in my own experience when I was about 22, and this is going back a long time. And this I basically had a meditation experience where my whole body just became pure energy, pure light. A kind of orgasmic state that was just experienced on a full body level, and felt like a complete immersion or merging with what we call God or Source, Creator. I'd been an atheist really up until that point, but I knew I was always seeking for something. I'd always been wanting to understand the deeper things in life, and I'd always questioned, why am I here? What's the point of all this? And I'd been in the psychology sections in the library from when I was like 12, 14 years old, looking for answers, because I didn't feel particularly happy, and I felt kind of old, although I was a young adult, I felt this like I was 40-ish. It felt like, if I knew what it felt like to be 40 or 50, middle-aged, that's how I felt when I was like 14, 15, 16. But it wasn't that I had any reason to be unhappy. I had a good, upbringing, family and everything. And I will go into my story a little bit in another video. I don't want to kind of take up this video time with my personal experience too much. But the Kundalini Awakening that happened completely changed my life, when I was 22 years old, or about there. And I knew that, I'd been pursuing a career in music, and I knew from that point onwards that, the world couldn't really give me anything that was ever going to make me happy, because I discovered this bliss, I discovered this incredible blissful state of being, where even just looking at a flower was like seeing a flower for the first time. And when you really see a flower for the first time, it is the most amazing, awe-inspiring, blissful experience, you know, when you're in that state, when you're perceiving from that state of being, like you've just arrived on the planet for the first time. So that was my experience at that time. But what followed was a whole kind of, for the first few months I had this blissful awakening, but then later on, you know, as time went on, there was just all my stuff was coming up, all the darkness, you know, the kind of dark night of the soul, as they call it. And you know, it was very scary and a very dark time in my life, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it around me. Back then, you know, 30 odd years ago, nobody was really talking about this kind of stuff. So I felt very alone, and I was just trying to work out, you know, what was going on with me. So to cut a long story short, I will go into that in another video. But one of the things that really helped me at that time was one day I just realized that all this thinking, all this mental activity, all these negative thoughts, all these disturbing thoughts that were coming up in my experience, I realized that, wait a minute, I can't be that because I can see that. So it's a good phrase, that I can't be that because I can see that. So basically, it was becoming aware of the pure aware state, the pure state of awareness that I am, you know, that is prior to the thoughts, prior to the experience, prior to the disturbance, prior to any emotional or mental state. And this was my saving grace. The fact that I realized that I was apart from what I was experiencing. And I knew that I was a good person in my heart of hearts, and that why I was thinking all that stuff or hearing these thoughts in my head that weren't very nice at the time, I realized I don't want to consciously be thinking those thoughts. So I'm not that's thinking. I'm not the thoughts. So this was a breakthrough for me at the time, and you know, I hope by kind of retelling that a little bit, relaying that story, that might help some of you to understand that when this process goes on, when this awakening comes up in you, there's almost like a splitting apart, because suddenly you're awake, you're seeing what, you know, all this activity, you become more aware that there's something more going on here. And so, but what happens is people get lost or identified with the separation state, and get sucked up in the thoughts and believe that they are that, you know, or get really disturbed by the thinking, by the mental, by the emotional body. So basically, the Kundalini Awakening can be very destabilizing on all levels of our being, like our body, the mental, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual psyche levels. And so I highly recommend that if you are going through that type of awakening, to seek out some help through maybe someone who's been through a similar experience, but someone who you can see that's in a good place. You don't need to go to any healers that are proclaiming to be healers that are very, very all over the place. So what I would say is find someone that you can trust, find someone that's got the stability that you desire, that you seek, that you desire to become more of yourself. It's very careful at that stage when you're very vulnerable in with what's going on, to find someone that you can really trust and relate to, and who understands the experiences that you've gone through. Another recommendation that I kind of went to much later on, because I've been through many cycles of kind of death and rebirth throughout my life. Throughout the last 30 years, there's been several more you could say compounded or deeper levels of awakening, self-realization. Every now and again there's just like a cycle of going much more within again, and going deeper and then coming up again, and coming out like as if you're being reborn again. So I've been through several cycles of that, and I think that so when I'd come through one of those cycles, I also went to see a Reiki healer and got Reiki activations, initiations, whatever you call it. But actually I found them to be very balancing. And the Reiki teacher that I went to, Cecilia Barry, was amazing. And she was a great healer for me, and a great source of stability at the time as well. So there's that Kundalini awakening. And then another type of awakening is just when you sort of realize that, the world that you grew up in is not quite it's not quite real, or is not quite truthful in many ways. So I'm kind of talking about the kind of awakening where you might discover the material by people like David Icke or David Wilcock, or I can't think of anybody else, but you start to realize that there are holes in the system. Or maybe you watch the Matrix movie. Sometimes, movies have so many different codes in them that sort of activate us, on our awakening journey. There's a lot of messages in movies that can be part of your awakening. So the Matrix, for example, basically realizing that the world that we know it, which has basically just ended in current day, but that world that was founded on sort of corruption, you could say, political corruption, power, corporations, control, greed, you could say, material consumption, consumerism, the world that's been built on the Great Divide. The very few have all the money, and then the masses, are working for these few. That kind of system, where working class people are working their bones off, to sustain a basic living, a basic income for their families. And we create this class division. It's a world that creates that class division. It's like working classes seem to have to work harder for less money, and then there's like a sort of hierarchical system, which is very divisive in that sense, in terms of what you can earn, what you're allowed to earn. So basically, there's that awakening of understanding that a lot of your beliefs as well, of maybe lack of confidence, feeling powerless, has kept you maybe in a certain framework within society, a certain job, even, career. So basically I'm talking about the areas of education, health and medicine, science and medical, political. So all these areas, when you start to realize that, wait a minute, there's something not quite right here. This is a very unfair system. Why is it that people are working really hard and not getting paid the money they're due? And then there's other people that are getting paid thousands and thousands more for, it seems to be, doing very little. And also it's what the end consumer is being fed as well, like through advertising and the media. So it's like we're kind of taught to be consumers. We're taught to consume and spend money on this, that, and that, which maybe we don't really need. So so there is that system that's going on as well. So part of an awakening can be realizing about the worldly systems that are in place, and realizing, where am I in this? Maybe I can earn more money. Maybe I can be happier. Maybe I don't have to work as hard as I'm working. Maybe there's alternatives in health that I don't know about. Maybe what my doctor is giving me on prescription is not necessarily, the highest route. So it's just kind of, learning about these things. We wake up and realize that ultimately, it's up to us to really care about ourselves. It's up to us to look after ourselves. It's up to us to be as self-sufficient as we can be, and to basically take self-responsibility for our vehicles, for our well-being on all levels, and that we are kind of ultimately responsible for that, because maybe there's a mistrust that comes up about, we start to question those systems that are in place and whether they've really got our best interests at heart. So that's another level of awakening. And then the other awakening is the kind of spiritual awakening, which is kind of what mainly this video is about, which is you want more fulfillment. You want to tap into that inner joy, that inner bliss that you've heard about. You want to be your true self. You want to be authentic. You don't want to be, a personality that has to, play this role, with people. You want to be able to have authentic, transparent communication that's more honest. You want to have real relationships that are based on, love, not love that's based on codependency or expectation of, well, if you fulfill this for me, then I love you, and I fulfill this for you. So, but that's another subject. So, God realization, or coming into the spiritual I am awareness. I exist, I am, before my thinking, before the programming, before the conditioning, prior to all these appearances that come up in my awareness, prior to all the experiences that occur in my awareness, I am. Therefore, I am not what I'm experiencing or what I'm aware of. I can't be. I exist prior to that. So this is kind of like waking up to your kind of divinity, your source, and realizing that you're not who you thought you were. You're not who your parents thought you were. So there's like this awakening to something deeper within you, and realizing that you can connect with a state of well-being or a state of bliss or love. There's like this state exists within you, and you can tap into it through meditation, through presence, through gratitude, through appreciation. So yeah, waking up to I am one with all that is, and it's all the same, realizing that it's all the same ultimately, because everything that's been created or in existence, everything that's come from the Creator that is here now, is coming from the same place that we all came from. So it's like if we rewind back to the origin of creation, the origin of you, the origin of me, we realize that there is this great intelligence, there is this infinite intelligence that is formless, that kind of, it's like a sun that shines through the glass and then creates the manifestation, the light. So everything that in creation is like the light in manifest form. I hope I'm not losing you. So basically that's the spiritual, awakening that you may be going through right now. Realizing that I'm not just this person. I'm not just a product of society. I'm not a product of my parents. I'm not a product of my parents' thinking. I'm not a product of the information downloads that I get from advertising, from the media, from all different types of sources. I'm not a product of that. I'm not a product of my education. I'm not a product of my political party. I'm not a product of the world as I know it. I am infinite intelligence. I am life itself. So you start to realize that, and you go within more and more, and you connect with the formless state, the pure awareness. So if that's what you're going through just now, welcome. And I can tell you that this is only the beginning. For me, when I had my initial awakening, it completely transformed my life and put me onto a healing path. It was basically as though, if you can see a jigsaw puzzle, that's all sort of put together, lying flat on a flat surface, and then suddenly something from under the table comes up and just throws all the pieces in the air, and so all this puzzle just like gets thrown in the air, all the pieces. And this is kind of like the spiritual awakening. It's like it disturbs the sediment. It disturbs the sediment, the ground that you the world or person that you knew, that you thought you were. It disturbs that. It just shatters it. It shatters the world of illusion of what you think the world is. So all of a sudden this jigsaw puzzle is thrown into the air, and then all the pieces have to kind of start landing. But when they're starting to land, this time your new kind of awareness, your enlightenment, your brighter intelligence now is putting all those pieces back together again. But this time it's like you're creating the picture. You're creating what this jigsaw puzzle is going to look like at the end of the day. You're going to create the picture that it's going to form. So now you're consciously aware of the pieces that you're putting down and joining together. So you become more conscious of what you're doing and how you're doing it and the purpose behind what you're doing. It's kind of one of the ways I feel to describe it. Excuse me. Throat's getting dry. And also during a spiritual awakening, there can be a sense, some of the symptoms can be disassociation. You can feel like you're seeing things. It feels like things look a bit surreal. So there can be this sense of, life is surreal. And this is a kind of disassociation that's going on as well. So that can be a symptom. You might notice that you're not relating to the people that were around you as well. That you're kind of like seeing more of the personality. You might be able to tap into why they're behaving the way they're behaving and what their conditioned beliefs and things are as well. So you might be able to tap into that because you're tapping into it in yourself. So you can start to tap into many gifts as well. So you might start to become much more sensitive, psychic to some degree. You might start taking new interests up that you never thought you would. So everything's shifting, and you've just kind of got to go with the flow of this, because things are shifting in your life, and they will be for some time. Sorry, I'm just moving around here. So things will be shifting all the time, and that it's an unending journey. It's just that if it's happened to you, it was meant to happen to you. It's part of your soul's agreement for it to happen to you. It's part of your divine purpose for it to happen to you. It's meant to happen to you exactly when it happens to you. So it is a blessing, but at the same time, there are challenges with it. So this is why I'm making this video, just to share a little bit about what I went through personally, and also just, you know, to kind of give you the reassurance that, you know, this is part of what happens, you know. And I would like to recommend a few teachers that would be really helpful for you to listen to. It's always good to listen to the truth, you know, the truth, you know, the other teachers' experiences of the awakening process, the God realization, self-realization, that kind of thing. It's very helpful to listen to these teachers. So my recommendations would be people like Eckhart Tolle, and I did read his book The Power of Now in the early days, and it was very, very good and very supportive. Another teacher I recommend is Adyashanti, and Mooji. I recommend Mooji, Mooji. He has a very beautiful, simplistic way of just guiding you back to awareness, guiding you back to your I am, and not getting caught up in the thoughts and emotions of the self. So basically it's, you know, coming home to your pure awareness before the appearances of thought and emotion. Meditation, obviously, and breathing. So, you know, having a meditation practice that you can ground yourself in every day, and your meditation will become deeper and will be very stabilizing for you. So this is, I'm getting into now some of the things that you can do to help yourself. So some of the things that can help are, first of all, you might be drawn to a more natural diet as well, because it's like you become aware of your health, your body. You know, as I say, if you become aware of the pharmaceutical industry and things like that, you might start to realize that, you know, you need to be a little bit more responsible for your own health. So cutting out processed chemical foods, which, you know, are very balancing for mind, body. Diet was a big part of what I experimented with. So eating a natural diet, plant-based, lots of fresh fruit, vegetables, grains, nuts and seeds, that kind of thing is very helpful. Connecting with a tribe, a community, an online community. There's loads of Facebook groups now. You can just check out a few Facebook groups that, you know, type in the search bar, see which ones resonate with you. But it's good that you can actually join a community now, and that will assist you going through this process. And one that I recommend is a teacher called Bentinho Massaro, and he has a Facebook community called Bentinho Massaro's community, teaching and community. That's what it is. So you'll get a lot of help there. Also, I'm available too as a spiritual mentor and guide. There's people like me that are kind of supporting those that are going through this kind of awakening. So if you look in the description box under this video, you'll see a link to my services. So I am available, and you can also ask questions if you would like under this YouTube video. Yeah, so getting support is really, really crucial, and finding those that have been through this experience will be really helpful for you. Listening to the masters, staying connected with nature as well, being out in nature. Earthing's a really good thing to do, is just having your feet on the earth. It connects you with the energy of the earth, the Schumann resonance, and is very grounding, very stable. Another thing you can look into is just like energy healing vibrational essences, such as the Bach flower remedies or homeopathy. They were part of my journey, and I recommend them. They were helpful at that time. Even just using something simple like Rescue Remedy, which is widely available just now in most pharmacies these days, I think. Getting plenty of rest, just really rest, and, you know, being really gentle with yourself, being really loving and compassionate with yourself at this time. So rest when you need to. You can play soft music in the background, plenty of music on YouTube. So, you know, just really be easy on yourself. You've got to love yourself through this. And that kind of wraps up this video, I think. So a lot of the sort of practical things that you can do to stay grounded were the kind of meditating, breathing, earthing, making sure your diet's good and natural, plenty of water, plenty of sunshine. All the basic things are going to support well-being that we kind of basically know. And definitely exposing yourself to the material of the masters, you know, that have been through it, people like Muji, Adyashanti and Eckhart Tolle. Listening to that material will be very supportive for you at this time. So, and working with, you know, a coach, a spiritual coach or mentor, such as myself or other ones that are out there. And finding other videos that are supported on YouTube, maybe like this one too. Okay, so I just want to thank you very much for watching, and I wish you a blessed day. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and share it with maybe other people that you know that are going through a similar experience at this time, and hopefully it can help them as well. So thank you very much, and namaste. Bye.